Institutes of the Christian Religion by John Calvin, Book 1, Chapter 13, Section 22, Servetus' Contention against the Trinity. To frame a catalogue of the errors with which the sincerity of faith was once assailed on this head of doctrine would be too long and needlessly irksome. And very many of the heretics, with brutish ravings seeking to overthrow the whole glory of God, have thought it enough to alarm and confuse the uninstructed. Presently, indeed, from a few men there have boiled up several sects, which partly tore asunder God's essence, partly confused the distinction that exists between the persons. Indeed, if we hold fast to what has been sufficiently shown above from Scripture, that the essence of the one God is simple and undivided, and that it belongs to the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, and on the other hand, that by a certain characteristic the Father differs from the Son, and the Son from the Spirit, the gate will be closed not only to Arius and Sabellius, but to other ancient authors of errors. But because in our own day there have arisen certain frenzied persons, such as Servetus and his like, who have entangled everything with new deceptions, it is of importance to discuss their fallacies in a few words. For Servetus, the name Trinity was so utterly hateful and detestable that he commonly labeled all those whom he called Trinitarians as atheists. I pass over the senseless words that he thought up to rail at them. This indeed was the sum of his speculations. God is assumed to be tripartite when three persons are said to reside in his essence. This is an imaginary triad, because it clashes with God's unity. Meanwhile, he would hold the persons to be certain external ideas which do not truly subsist in God's essence, but represent God to us in one manifestation or another. In the beginning there was no distinction in God, because the Word and the Spirit were formerly one and the same. But when Christ came forth as God from God, the Spirit proceeded from him as another God. But even though he sometimes colors his absurdities with allegories, as when he says that the eternal Word of God was the Spirit of Christ with God, and the refulgence of his idea, and that the Spirit was the shadow of deity, yet afterwards he annihilates the deity of both, declaring that as God metes out according to his dispensation, there is a part of God both in the Son and in the Spirit, just as the same Spirit, being substantially in us and also in wood and stone, is a portion of God. We will see in its proper place what he babbles concerning the person of the mediator. Indeed, this monstrous fabrication that the person is nothing else than a visible manifestation of the glory of God needs no long refutation. For although John affirms that the Word was God when the universe was as yet not created, he utterly distinguishes Word from idea. If then also that Word who was God from farthest eternity both was with the Father and had his own glory with the Father, surely he could not have been an outward or figurative splendor, but of necessity it follows that he was a hypostasis that resided in God himself. Moreover, although no mention is made of the Spirit except in the history of the creation of the universe, nevertheless the Spirit is introduced here, not as a shadow, but as the essential power of God, when Moses tells that the as yet formless mass was itself sustained in him. Therefore, it then has become clear that the eternal Spirit had always been in God, while with tender care he supported the confused matter of heaven and earth until beauty and order were added. Surely there could not yet be a likeness or representation of God, as Servetus dreams. Elsewhere, indeed, he is forced to disclose more openly his impious notion that God, by decreeing through his eternal reason a Son visible to himself, in this way he showed himself visibly. For if this be true, no other divinity is left to Christ, except insofar as the Son has been ordained by God's eternal decree. Besides this, he so transforms those factors which he posits in place of hypostases that he does not hesitate falsely to attach new accidental qualities to God. Indeed, to be execrated far beyond all else is the fact that he indiscriminately mingles both the Son of God and the Spirit with created beings generally. For he publicly declares that in the essence of God there are parts and divisions, each portion of which is God. Indeed, he particularly states that the spirits of believers are co-eternal and consubstantial with God, although he elsewhere assigns a substantial deity not only to the souls of men, but to other created things.